This episode of A Glassblower's Companion is brought to you by Mountain Glass Arts. For the month of March 2020, Mountain Glass is offering their Boro sale. You can get Pyrex rod and tube at 40% off, no coupon code needed. And for all you beautiful soft glass nerds, they have their double helix at 15% off, no coupon code needed as well. And they also have their weekly sales, kiln sales, torch sales, and all kind of fun things going on. And for all you folks out there in the west coast of the United States, they now have their new location out in Eugene, Oregon. If you guys have any questions for them, make sure you call their number in Asheville at 866-LAMPWORK. And for any other questions, comments, or concerns, just go to mountainglass.com. That's mountainglass.com. Hello, and welcome to a Wise Guy Minute, episode 13. Why you need an emergency fund. Before I get started, I just wanted to touch base and say hello and hope you are well. Right now we are in some unprecedented times in this nation and the world at whole, and now is more important time than ever for you to take your business seriously. I know a lot of you out there who are listening to this are currently struggling because shops are closed, nobody's buying any glass, but right now is because we do have this downtime, it is an easier time for us to start getting organized. Basically, if you have not ever started this, just starting the mindset and thinking of your business as an actual business is the first step. The second step is to find yourself an accountant. An accountant is going to make this way easier for you in a process, but this 3-part series on getting your financial house in order is a way for you to begin the process of getting yourself organized and also changing your mindset. If you've gone through episode 1 and episode 2, which were actually episode 11 and 12, the first episode was on getting a budget started. Episode 12 was on establishing your baseline costs. Those first 2 episodes are going to help you then be able to figure out how much you need to put aside for an emergency fund. And again, to make life easier for you, getting an accountant is going to help you out tremendously. Not only with helping you stay organized, but also helping you find areas within your business that you can take profits that you've made and purchase supplies, materials, equipment, instead of having to take that money and pay it towards taxes. It's just something that happens within business. Whether you're a sole proprietorship or an LLC, you definitely want to talk to your accountant about the benefits of what is going to be for you based on state to state, and I do discuss that in this episode. But again, I just want to touch base before I get started and just say, hey, this is completely off the cuff. Everything else I have written out and have gone over again just to make sure that this all makes sense and that you can easily process this. I will have a link in the show notes for you to download a blank form that is there to help you figure out some of your estimates and how much you need to put away when it comes to your emergency fund, and also to help you keep track of your savings. I'm here to help. I'm here to help you change your mindset, and I hope you, again, are doing well. Love you. Enjoy the episode. Episode 13, Why You Need an Emergency Fund. So far in this series, Getting Your Financial House in Order, we've discussed establishing a budget for your business and personal life and how to figure out baseline costs of goods you are producing. Now that you're beginning to create a different mindset when it comes to how you run your business, it's time to start thinking about putting money aside into an emergency fund for both your business and personal life. Small businesses can experience seasonal downturns that they have to be prepared for. And one way they prepare for this is by creating a squirrel fund. Like the squirrel, a business has to set aside and save up funds in order to survive the slow times of the year. Like the squirrel who stores nuts away for the winter, we need to take on this similar approach and be prepared for the slow periods in our business, or in worst case, we become ill or injured and are unable to work at all. If the body is injured, it is unable to perform at its highest ability, hindering the artist from being productive and losing the ability to create their income. Has this ever happened to you? Have you cut or burnt yourself so badly that you are unable to use your hands for more than one day? I have. About 10 years ago, while working late one night, trying to wrap up an order of inside-out handpipes. Instead of being in bed, there I was, groggy, exhausted from the long hot day in the studio, and lacking the focus that I had had when the day started. As I finished laying the last few lines of stringers inside a section of tubing, I heard a crack in the glass, and before I knew it, the section of tubing fell off the blowpipe in my left hand, exposing my naked fingers to 4,000 degrees of unforgiving fire. The flame made a direct hit across the 3 middle fingers on my left hand, with pointer and middle fingers receiving most of the blow. My nail beds were severely damaged, as were the first knuckles just below my nails. This became the most severe burn and injury I had received in the first 10 years of my glass career, and still the worst to this day. Fortunately, I had just finished a large commission that had allowed me to put a little extra cushion in my bank account, and if it wasn't for that, I would have been screwed. I spent the next few weeks doing very little work, allowing my fingers to rest and heal, only because of the financial luck I had on my side. I was able to pay bills and survive. After 3 months, my fingers were back to about 90%, and so was my production speed. This brings us to the importance of the emergency fund. The emergency fund isn't just there for businesses to survive. It's also to help continuing to pay your personal expenses while out of work. Ideally, you want to have a personal emergency fund of at least 3 months of expenses, food, water, shelter, etc., which by keeping a budget, you can then see exactly how much you should have set aside to cover the essentials. If you currently do not have anything put aside for emergencies, then what do you do? This episode isn't about solving that problem. My goal is to help you get proactive and understand how simple this can be, as long as you are managing your finances like the CEO we talked about in the previous episodes. If you know how much it costs to run your studio, then you should know how many pipes you need to sell monthly to be able to not only cover your studio costs, but also pay your business back the expenses in material that were spent to manufacture those items. Pay yourself a little salary or piecework, as well as have some leftovers that can be allocated towards an emergency fund. When it comes to paying yourself, you would know how much you need to make if you figured out your personal expenses and how much extra you would need to pay yourself so that you're not just making ends meet, but also have leftovers for an emergency fund and living the lifestyle you want to live. Now, this isn't just going to happen overnight. This will take some time if you haven't started yet, but all you have to do is start. Start with a personal budget first. Then once you figure that out, figure out your studio budget. Once you've done that, then figure out your baseline cost to manufacture everything you create, and then and only then can you truly be able to start putting funds away for that necessary squirrel fund. So let's figure out how to do just that. If you do have a budget, then you know the set amount you need to earn in order to pay all of your personal stuff, which should only come from the profits of your business. The worst thing you can do to yourself is to get into the habit of selling an order, say for $500, and automatically considering that you just made $500. Don't lie to yourself. You didn't just make $500. Your business made $500, and now you have to pay the business first. Make sure to subtract the appropriate amounts needed to ensure that you are covering the material costs and daily costs to run the business as well. Your power, water, cable, Wi-Fi, etc. If you are a home-based business, you should still treat the space as its own entity, which will come in handy as a tax benefit towards the end of the year. Again, talk to a tax professional. Once you truly get this down, you'll be able to calculate your monthly salary, saving for taxes, and your emergency fund. And this is just one way of setting this up. There are other ways, but I find this one to be the simplest in the end. And please again, for your own sanity, get an accountant. If each month you paid yourself an average of $4,000 a month from the profit of your business, that again is after you've paid the business back for materials, covered the studio expenses, and put a little away for its emergency fund. You can then calculate how your personal salary will be allocated based on how much you need to pay yourself based on the budget you created for your personal expenses. So at $4,000 a month, now divide this up into two separate columns. Take 75% of that $4,000 and put that towards personal expenses and taxes, and the other 25% towards emergency fund and savings. The 75% of $4,000 is $3,000. In that column that you have for salary, subtract 25% of the $3,000 towards your taxes. You will now have $2,400 for salary and $600 towards your taxes. So now in column 2, you have your retained earnings, which is your emergency fund and your savings, and that was 25% of the $4,000, which you now have $1,000. Take that $1,000 and divide that into two different percentages. Again, 75% and 25%. 75% of that will be your emergency fund, and 25% will be that for retained savings. The 75% of that $1,000 is $750 that you can then put towards your emergency fund. And then the 25% of that $1,000 is $250 that you put into retained savings. And again, use the chart that I have in the show notes. This will really help you figure out the cost. And you can just use these numbers as a general example. And then once you have figured out your own personal numbers, use these charts for those numbers. The 25% for taxes can be adjusted based on the state you live in. Federal taxes generally can vary based on salary, which is why you need an accountant. Your accountant will help you minimize your taxes while maximizing your profits and expenses paid within your business. Again, this is all just an example of how this can work for you. Don't forget, too, your personal tax bill covers Social Security and Medicare, not just your federal income tax. This also gives you proof of income, so when it comes time to purchase your first home or a vehicle that you may need to finance, they won't deny you for being an artist. If your average cost to live is $2,200 a month to cover all of your personal expenses, then your 90-day emergency fund savings should be around $6,600. If you back up and you're paying yourself $2,400 after taxes, which again was the $4,000 minus 75%, which was $3,000, and then you subtract the 25% for taxes, that leaves you with $2,400. You'll then have an additional $200 to give yourself some wiggle room in your budget that can be thrown at debt in your budget or increase the amount of money you spend on, say, groceries or entertainment. Based on the example of $4,000 a month salary, it would take you an average of 9 months to save up for the 90-day emergency fund to cover your personal expenses. Your emergency fund would be $6,600. So after you've saved for an estimated 9 months, your emergency fund is now $6,600. And your retained savings account is $2,250. And that retained savings you can then take and put towards a down payment on a house. As you can see, this is only going to happen if you start now by creating good business habits and paying the business first. I truly hope you take action and begin to take your business seriously. Hire an accountant and make this process as simple as you can make it. And again, this is just one way to go about it, but the point is to start. You can find me on Instagram at A Glassblower's Companion, and any questions, please feel free to contact me through the email at wiseguymedia@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and this has been a Wise Guy Minute. This episode of A Glassblower's Companion is brought to you by Mountain Glass Arts. For the month of March 2020, Mountain Glass is offering their Boros sale. You can get Pyrex rod and tube at 40% off, no coupon code needed. And for all you beautiful soft glass nerds, they have their double helix at 15% off, no coupon code needed as well. And they also have their weekly sales, kiln sales, torch sales, and all kind of fun things going on. And for all you folks out there in the west coast of the United States, they now have their new location out in Eugene, Oregon. If you guys have any questions for them, make sure you call their number in Asheville at 866-LAMPWORK. And for any other questions, comments, or concerns, just go to mountainglass.com. That's mountainglass.com.